Breaking news, boxing pound for pound #1 Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence rematch might be in jeopardy due to Errol Spence's cataract surgery he done recently. As Crawford stated, quote, "Last I can recall, we definitely getting our eyes checked before every fight. I'm just saying. Any boxer would know that, but casual fans will say and make up anything. I might give y'all one more, or not, because y'all don't know how to appreciate greatness when you see it. I fought everyone and everybody that was put on my table, never turned down a fight in my life. Even if it was a late notice, moving up in weight, short fighters, tall fighters, strong fighters, fast fighters, boxers, brawlers, etc. I fought them all. I live in the gym, but my whole career, these fighters been running behind people saying I'm on the wrong side of the street. Call this guy, call that guy. Make it make sense. I wish I could fight more than one time a year. But these guys been running and hiding for years. Boxing nothing like it used to be when everyone fought each other. Like I said before, Jaron Ennis had 2 opportunities to fight me. We talking about a kid that's still fighting in theaters. Make it make sense." End of the quote. That was a lot said by Crawford. Clearly, Crawford is not buying Errol Spence's excuse of having a cataract surgery that was overdue before their fight in July. As Crawford pointed out, we definitely get our eyes checked before every fight. So if that's the case, how did Errol Spence get past the physical test? I want to hear Errol Spence respond to that. Additionally, Crawford also pointed out that he may fight again or he may not fight again. It all depends on how he feels, basically. Therefore, the $1 million question is, whatever happened to the Errol Spence rematch? We all know Errol Spence has a rematch clause, so it ain't like Crawford can just walk away. The only way Crawford can walk away is if Errol Spence walks away first. The last thing we seen Errol Spence do was get a cataract surgery done. That's gonna push the rematch even further. So was that Errol Spence's way of walking away from the fight by delaying the rematch further and further to the point where Crawford is forced to walk away from the rematch? I told you guys the timing was odd for Errol Spence to get the cataract surgery because we are 6 months away from their first fight. So Errol Spence could have had gotten that surgery done anytime between then. But the fact that he chose to wait till now, that's only going to delay the rematch even further. Did Errol Spence do that by design in order to delay the rematch to the point where Crawford wants to walk away? Because it's starting to sound like it. Remember, Errol Spence hasn't said anything about a rematch with Crawford recently, which leaves you wondering, does Errol Spence even wants the rematch sincerely? I know his team doesn't after seeing how the first fight played out, but is Errol Spence on the same page with his team now? I thought it was pretty odd when Crawford was asked about the Errol Spence rematch after Errol Spence activated his rematch clause. A reporter asked Crawford, where would the rematch take place, 147 or 154? Surprisingly, Crawford responded with, for the moment in time, 147, because Errol Spence hasn't requested to fight at 154 yet. So it wasn't that Crawford is not entertaining the rematch at 154, but more so is because Errol Spence hasn't requested to fight at 154 yet. The reason why Crawford is waiting on Errol Spence to request it is because he want to negotiate the terms. Crawford gets to pick the weight, so if Errol Spence want to fight at 154, they're going to have to give Crawford a little bit more money. But the fact at that time Errol Spence didn't request to fight at 154 yet, that was really odd. And I'm starting to see why. I'm not sure if Errol Spence even wants the rematch to begin with. And the eye cataract surgery could be his way of walking out of the fight. Only time will tell. But if Errol Spence is going to claim an eye injury, more specifically cataract that was covering his eye, which was blocking his vision from being able to see, even though, like Crawford pointed out, Errol Spence had a physical test where they tested his eye and made sure he was able to see correctly. So why will Errol Spence make up an excuse if he doesn't want the rematch with Crawford? That doesn't even make sense. Is this a way to save face to why Errol Spence got beat up the way he did by Crawford? Because originally when Errol Spence posted the cataract surgery, then said the reason why he was getting hit with so many jabs and hooks is because he had cataract that was covering his eye from being able to see. When Errol Spence said that, I thought he was saying that because he was letting the public know in the rematch, things gonna be different because he's gonna be able to see, right? But what's the point of making an excuse like that if Errol Spence is not going to try to get it back in blood now that he can see clearly with both of his eyes? That kills the whole point of him making an excuse. If Errol Spence want to say, look, man, I wasn't 100% when I fought Crawford the first time, well, that's completely fine. It's not about how you get dropped. It's more about how you get back up. So let's see what Errol Spence can do when he's healthy and can see with both of his eyes. You see, if Errol Spence truly and sincerely had a surgery that was overdue because he had cataract that was blocking his vision from being able to see before the Crawford fight, then he would be doing everything in his power in order to prove that was the case by fighting Crawford again in a rematch so he can get back up. We saw him go down, but we haven't seen him get back up against Crawford, especially now that he's healthy. Errol Spence's next move is going to end up being his best move, depending on if he fights Crawford in a rematch or not. Because if he doesn't, that would mean Errol Spence doesn't believe he could beat Crawford at 150% or at 100%. None of that matter. Crawford is simply the better fighter, which Crawford proved that to be the case. Crawford didn't just prove that he's a legendary fighter. Crawford proved that he's an all-time great fighter. That's why Errol Spence needs to keep his head up anyways, because he's a legendary fighter also. There is no shame in losing to the greatest fighter of his decade, and that's Bud Crawford. With that being said, go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe below, and to be continued on the next episode of Akhi TV. Peace out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.